What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you for joining me here on the 2 Feet on the Ground Gravity podcast. I am your host, Chris. Really excited about you being here today. Hey, the guest that I had the privilege of interviewing is Scotty Smiley. He's from the Pacific Northwest and ended up going to the West Point Military Academy, deploying to Iraq, and when a bomb went off, it took his eyesight. And his story is one of hope and courage of both him and his wife, Tiffany, having to persevere through this really difficult time. And he made a choice that he wasn't going to stop life. In fact, he was going to sit there and continue to live adventurous despite the challenge of being blind. It's a story of him participating in Ironman triathlons, continuing to serve in the United States Army as a blind officer. It's a lot of encouragement that a lot of us can draw hope and courage from ourselves. So with that, I say we get started. What is going on, Scotty Smiley? How are you, brother?
Hey, great. I'm doing well.
Thanks for being willing to join me on the 2 Feet on the Ground Gravity podcast. We are actually in the same general area, even though this is a virtual recording. We're both in the Tri-Cities, Washington. Great place to live. Yeah.
Yeah. Mid-Columbia River Valley, where I'm from. I love it. Family, wife's family. Couldn't find myself in a better place. So it's great to be here.
I love it. Well, knowing that you and I do have some crossover, just meaning we've lived in the same place. We've gone to some of the same places. That's kind of where I wanted to start. Tell me about your upbringing in Pasco, one of the 3 Tri-Cities. What was life like growing up in the 90s?
Yeah. So I moved to Pasco, middle of my 5th grade year. I know my wife and I, we have 3 boys now, and I probably told them 500 times, moving from Boise, Idaho, kind of scary entering into a new school. But because I had a large family, 3 brothers, 3 sisters, I'm right near the middle. I always had friends, and family and those around to care. But what was awesome is entering into junior high the next year, I met my future wife, Tiffany, in 6th grade. So took a little bit of maturity on my part and growth until we finally were able to date together my senior year. Both of us graduated in 1999. But throughout that process, just, not just how I was raised, but kind of how I looked at life was to push myself to not only in education, but in physical feats. I was a wrestler, football player, and just always strove to be the best that I can be. And not necessarily, to win or to be at the top of the mountain above anyone else, but just to be the best that I can be to not only make my life as good as it can be, but hopefully in the future to help others. But that's what really guided me towards the principles in what I live today. And it kind of opened up the opportunities when I began to apply to colleges where I wanted to go and what I want to do. And in the end, I chose to attend the United States Military Academy. And so, when you're dating a girl, it is kind of hard to say, hey, well, I'm going to move to New York and you're going to stay here in Washington State. But in the end, it worked out. So my girlfriend at the time, Tiffany, is now my beautiful bride.
And I was reading last night again in Hope Unseen, and I had forgotten the impact that your older brother, Neil, had. What kind of impact did he have just on your choice to go to West Point?
Yeah, I mean, having 2 older brothers, I always looked up to them, their decisions. I learned, what good decisions they made, and growing up, what poor decisions they made. And I took note, hey, maybe not do that, or this is how mom and dad, caught them. So know what to do to get away if I was going to go down that same route. But in the end, as my senior year began to wane, and not only looking at what both of my brothers did, both going to college, but I really looked towards the leadership role and responsibilities that my oldest brother Neil had at the military academy. And it wasn't just, getting educated and then, go off and get a job. The military academy, as Neil told me, and as I quickly found out, is they taught you leadership. You were always in a leadership role. You would depend upon your classmates, your seniors, juniors, sophomores, and freshmen to learn how to lead, and they put you in those leadership roles. And so that's what I really saw of myself, and why I looked up to Neil and the choices he made, is because he wasn't just getting a great education and staying physically fit. He was put in leadership roles in which would set him up for success later on in life. And so I think those are some of the main reasons that I chose the United States Military Academy.
Now, I mean, that's a really small group of people that get the privilege to attend the military academy, or any of the other services academies as well. What is that? I mean, you started to touch on it there. What's daily life like if you're a student at West Point?
Yeah, anytime I talk to students, even now, and even our three boys, Tiffany and I's our boys, is I encourage anyone and everyone to join the military, to not only understand the service and sacrifices that have to be made to protect and defend our Constitution, but it also enables us to live the free life that we live. And I think more so, if you want to become an officer, you go to one of the academies, you go through Reserve Officer Training Corps, ROTC, or you get a degree and then you go to officer candidate school. 3 ways at least to enter into the Army. But for me, one of the great things about the military academy, and I say on one hand, one great thing, but at the beginning, it was very difficult, is the stress that they impart on you your freshman year. They want to make sure that you have chosen the right place, and that you can not only withstand the efforts and the demands of the academy, but more so the efforts and demands once the 47 months, the 4 years pass by, and you're in charge of men and women, and lives are going to be put on the line. And I remember my freshman year, whether it's waking up early to deliver newspapers to the upperclassmen, you'd have to memorize the newspaper. You have to, as freshmen, you'd have to stand out underneath a clock and call minutes to basically let the upperclassmen know what time it was, when formation was going to be, and then what uniform to have. You'd have to memorize the front page of the newspaper. You'd have to have the days of the week, which means they say the days, and you say, "Sir, the day, today is," you give the time, date. You then say how many days until the Army beats, Ball State, then Army beats Navy, then 500th night, 100th night. So there's all these dates, and every day they change. And in the end, what the military academy and what they're trying to do is to enable you to think, off the top of your head, but be able to memorize things that are important, but at the same time being able to do other responsibilities and being in charge of men and women, but being able to recall random information at a pinpoint notice. And I think that, again, is what led me to learn and to be the leader that I am today. You'd have breakfast formation, then you'd go to classes, then you have lunch formation, you go to lunch, and then you have afternoon classes. And then in the end, after all your classes are complete, you either go to a core squad, which are varsity teams. My freshman year, I was on the wrestling team. I was JV, and 2 practices a day, losing weight, plus pushing through academics. It was a tough road, and but at the same time, so rewarding that I was able to do what I was able to do at that time. And if you're not a part of a varsity team, whether it's football, basketball, track, you could become a part of a club team, which is like the row out on the Hudson River. There's rugby, lacrosse, and some of those may have switched to the core squad or varsity. And if you're not any of those, in which I was a part of the last 3 years, you do intramurals. So you still have, whether it's soccer, frisbee, track, orienteering, which, as you know, it means going finding random points on a map, and you run, and it's timed. You get little dots on your map to make sure you have the right points. So every day you're not only memorizing leadership, you're in charge of someone, or you're someone's in charge of you, you're counseling, they're mentoring you. And then in the evening, it's at study hall. After you go grab dinner, and then you have study hall, and then lights are up at about approximately 11 o'clock at night, which all your lights have to be off, no staying awake. I remember my freshman year, many hours underneath my sheets with a flashlight trying to memorize information. But those are the normal day. And it was hard because day in and day out, Monday through Friday, and even sometimes Saturday, if there's a football game, you'd have to march, or you have a Saturday morning inspection. They call it SAMI, where you have to clean your room out. You're just always making sure you're not only taking care of yourself, but you have other duties and responsibilities. And I think that's what was so amazing about the academy. It's not just the academic and the rigors of the academic schedule, but you also had physical fitness throughout the day. And then there was always constant leadership, military leadership. And I think those are 3 reasons that, I personally believe the academy, all the academies are amazing places to get educated at.
You're an author of the book Hope Unseen. I think I referenced that just a second ago, but I really like something you talk about in the book just before, it was the night before you went to Ranger School. And, you detailed how you had packed your bags, and you even helped your roommate or your buddy pack his bags because he was a little late, that happens. Seen that one before in my military experience as well. But then you talked about, you laid your head down, and because of preparation, trust in the Lord, and an optimistic spirit, you said it was your NyQuil. Is that something that you feel like you've always had, going through high school here in Pasco, and then at West Point as well? Is that just a discipline that's been in your life, or is that something that you had to learn?
I think a little bit of both. I think it has been in my life, but it's something that I have to learn, not only through high school. If you didn't prepare for a test or you didn't get an essay done, you realize, hey, you didn't prepare. But when you do prepare, and then, being a faith-based man, that you have to trust in the Lord if you've prepared, and then everything else is history. But I think I learned it far more at the academy, in which, feeling I'm a stud, come from Pasco High, and then entering the military academy, where I'm now, at the beginning, I'm failing courses because I thought I prepared, but I didn't prepare to the extent I needed to because of the transition from high school to college. I realized there had to be so much more preparedness for me to set myself up for success. At the same time, my belief in God, it was still, whether it's reading, Our Daily Bread or going to church on Sunday, I always made sure that my priorities were at the forefront of the decisions that I was making. Because I knew if I had God in my front and I trusted him and I was willing to prepare, then I knew I could make it through anything. And I think it definitely bode very well for me at Ranger School. And my wife says I'm a little uptight sometimes, a little type A, a little OCD. And a lot of that is from the military academies. When you're preparing for war, or Ranger School, or even the academy, you have to prepare. And I know, I don't know where I heard it. It's like, it's great to wait to the last minute to prepare. But if you don't have a minute to prepare and you've waited to that last minute, you're kind of up a creek without a paddle. So I've seen it give me a great amount of success. Is when that preparation's there, I trust in God, and then everything else is history. And for me, luckily, being newly married, going to Ranger School right after, that belief structure helped me pass through in 62 days, and was able to see my wife again.
Well, that type A personality resonates with me, Scotty. When I was enlisted in the Air Force, and when I got out of both our basic and then our tech school and got stationed permanent party with my wife, I tried instructing her how to fold the towels. This was a very short conversation. It went something like, "Would you like to be the designated towel folder?" And that was her saying it to me. And I looked at her and said, "No, ma'am." And she goes, "I'm going to fold the towels. How I'm going to fold the towels." Yeah. So yes, the military does a great job of teaching us those foundational pieces of how to be able to follow technical orders or, precise things to the T, because sometimes we have to be perfect in those small things. Now, the unfortunate consequence for young, immature husbands like myself is sometimes you try to pass that on to your wife and it doesn't go very well. But thankfully, she gave me some grace. We worked through that, and I've just learned that, hey, you know what? If I want the towels folded a certain way, I should start folding them probably myself. So
I'm right with you, and I think it's the same with us. Is you try to impart that just vast amount of education of how to properly fold a towel or how to properly make a bed. And you realize, in a marriage, it's the opposite side of the same coin. Is it may not look alike, but it gets the job done. I think what's so amazing about my wife, Tiffany, is she's the creative one. She's the inventive one. She's the one that always is thinking outside of the box. And I'm more of like, hey, where's my right and left limit? Or they're here, I can't go back, I can't go forward because of the rules and regulations. And she is just beyond amazingly blessed my life, enabling me to think outside of the box, enabling me to understand that things can be done a certain way, in a different way, though I still may go around the house and fold the towels in a certain way.
Yeah, anytime I try to organize something, it quickly gets undone with having kids in the house. Hey, you were successful. I mean, you were successful in high school, in wrestling. You were a state champion. Your team were state champions in football, in the top class in Washington State, the 4A class. You get accepted to West Point. I mean, these are big achievements. And you marry the girl, right? You got the girl. I mean, I
think that's my biggest achievement.
Amen. Yes, brother. I agree. All that preparation and all that success couldn't prevent April 6, 2005 from happening, because sometimes in life, things just don't go right. What happened on April 6th?
Yeah, and I think that's what's hard is as we live life and, being a Christian and, doing Bible studies every week, feeling that I was doing what I was called to do, successful in high school, graduating from the military academy, infantry, ranger, airborne, had paperwork even prepared to potentially go to the Ranger Regiment, special operations. I had my life planned. But on April 6th of 2005, while being deployed to Mosul, Iraq, in Operation Iraqi Freedom 3, there was intelligence that there was potential suicide car bombs out in the city. And if any of you don't know that, Mosul is a city of about 2 million people. So it's a pretty sizable piece of land and quite a bit of people with hundreds of thousands of cars. But unfortunately, I saw a suspicious vehicle in which the back of the car was lower than the front. And given the rules of engagement, you can't just, we're told day in and day out, and even today, soldiers that are deployed overseas around the world, you can't just shoot someone because you're scared. You have to see them possibly have a weapon and either discharged it, blown up, or killed someone or hurt someone in order to retaliate or to strike back. And so at the time, I felt I made the best decision, and I parked my Stryker vehicle, which is this 8-wheeled vehicle. It's got a 50 caliber machine gun on top. I was standing up in the front left hatch. Metal was about up to my chest, with sandbags and Kevlar over the top to protect from blasts. I had, flak vest on, bulletproof glasses, my CVC helmet on, and, carrying an M4. I was just about 30 yards away from his vehicle. So this man in his car was facing west on the road. I pulled almost parallel, I was a little in front of him, just to his south, and I'm facing east. So we're literally almost parallel, facing the different direction on the same road. No median, nothing in between. It's just cement. And I yelled at him to get out of his vehicle. And so he looked over his left shoulder at me, kind of over his front left, and took his hands off the steering wheel and shook his head no. And again, this just looked like an innocent guy. His head was buzzed, face was buzzed, like had a gray shirt. I remember, kind of collared, down to his wrists. He was just sitting in a silver Opel, a little sedan. But again, the suspiciousness of the vehicle, the back of the car was lower than the front. We had earlier intelligence that the insurgents were telling people to get out. So again, wanted him to get out of his vehicle, and I yelled at him again. He responded in the same manner, taking his hands off the steering wheel, shaking his head no, looking at me, and then he let his foot off the brake. And that's when I raised my M4 to my shoulder. I shot either 1 or 2 rounds in front of his vehicle, then boom, my world went black. And that's when I woke up about 4 or so days later in Walter Reed Army Medical Center, not remembering what had happened, but later being told that the man, once I shot those rounds, he blew himself up. He was a suicide vehicle borne, improvised explosive device, SV bed, taking his own life, sending shrapnel through both of my eyes, in which my left eye was enucleated, my right eye was sewn shut, and then at the time, temporarily partially paralyzed the right side of my body. And waking up in Walter Reed Army Medical Center, coming from being the best shape of my life, was married to the most beautiful, my high school sweetheart. I had great plans, future, everything ahead of us. And now my world had just been blown into a million pieces. And, at the time, I didn't know what I was going to do and how I was going to, and how I even looked at life. And it was the most traumatizing scenario or situation that I ever felt I could be in.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks for sharing that, brother. Hey, I believe in this context of gravity, the reason why my wife and I started this podcast, that relationships have such a huge impact on giving us perspective and making sure we stay grounded. And in your book, Hope Unseen, you really get into some of those folks that stepped up. I mean, obviously your wife, Tiffany, she was remarkable. You talk about so many things that she did to support you. You talk about Colonel Kevin McDonald and things that he did that were a little bit outside the box, but totally still within boundaries. But I mean, he sat there and made sure that people were going to take care of you. Talked about Captain Van, another leader in your life that made sure that he invested in you during his mid-tour. Tell us about some of those experiences and just how that gave you strength, or how that gave you the support you needed in that time.
Yeah, it's so amazing how relationships that I had began to grow throughout not only high school, but more so the military academy and my military career really began to show itself. And that's one of the things that I teach my boys is the gravity of the impact that they make, the words out of their mouth, and how they treat others. Because, one of the things that I teach them is, treat others as you want to be treated. Because in the end, if you're not nice and you're not kind to those that are around you, don't ever expect them to come and help you. Don't ever expect them to help or assist you when you're downtrodden and you're in a hurting and you're hurting. And so for me, it was Tiffany every morning, every afternoon, every evening, speaking truth, hope, and life, telling me what I was going to be. Scotty, you're going to be an author. I was like, I don't know how to write. You didn't even know my grade. You're going to be you're a public speaker. It's like, I don't even like people. Why would I want to talk to them? You're going to be a teacher. Like, if you can't even do well, how are you going to teach? But every day she just spoke positivity to me. And whether it's Kevin McDonald, Jeff Van Antwerpen, I was mad at Jeff because he spent his R&R, his rest and relaxation. He came back to Washington, D.C. to see how I was doing. And I felt bad because, like, geez, you should be down in the Bahamas or down in Florida, Hawaii, having fun with your wife. And at the time, they just had their oldest daughter. But it was that relationship that enabled me, that showed me that the relationships that I had mean something. And for me at the time, I was in a dark place. I was not in the same healthy, positive nature or person that I was deployed or even before the deployment. But it was that positivity that taught me, like, Scotty, is a choice that you're making. You're choosing to look at this world in a negative fashion. You're choosing to not want to live life with joy. And again, it's that truth, hope, and life that Tiffany, was with me every day, friends, family, and loved ones, that gave me the ability and understanding of not just forgiveness, but the fact that I can choose to live the life that I want to live. And if I want to choose to be angry, then I would. And those relationships and the gravity that I had would not be a gravity in which those around me would want to be a part of. And so for me, it was just that love and that grace that not only Tiffany, but those family and friends and loved ones gave me that enabled me to not only forgive, but to begin my recovery process and begin to live life fully.
One of the things you say in your book is that Tiffany was approached by the Army, and I'm sure this is really normal, When someone experiences a life-altering injury in the service to our country and was given the opportunity for you to be medically retired. And she knew it wasn't right. I love as you describe your wife. She's a fighter. And I mean this in a good way, right? Because there are times in life that we need to step up and fight. Something I try to teach my kids. Let's not pick fights, but there are times that we need to step up and be people of character and fight the good fight. And I mean, you talk about it from her upbringing, from being a soccer player and being a very competitive spirited person. And now all of a sudden she is this young Army wife. Her husband can't see. And the Army is saying, hey, here's the out processing, here's the medical retirement paperwork. And in a really good way, she fought, she advocated for you. And in your book, you say, I mean, after all, blind guys, of course, don't serve in the Army. I mean, that's just common sense, right? And it was like your wife just sensed something different. At what point was she able to really bounce this stuff off you, or did she have to really lean on the support of some of these other folks to help her with that process?
I mean, again, I am married to the most amazing woman in the world. And it's that love, not only for me, but knowing that she knew that I was the one to choose the military academy. She knew that I was the one to choose to stay and go active duty in the Army, that she wanted this to be my decision. But what's even more amazing about her is she's a nurse. She's a registered nurse. She quit her job to come be with me on a one-way flight from Pasco, Washington to Washington, D.C. to be with me, not knowing whether I would show up dead or alive. That was the commitment. It was for better or for worse. And, the situation that she was now in, at 23 years old, she's sitting in front of colonels, social workers, doctors, someone from the VA, and they're basically saying, your husband can't see. We're going to begin the medical retirement process. She had the power of attorney, and we just need you to sign this. And one of the best things about nurses is they take care of people. They know the best thing to do for a wounded soldier is to care for them. And that's the best way. And one of the reasons that, post-traumatic stress, which I, originally had, but I was able to withstand and fight through because I was still active duty. I was able to stay because Tiffany didn't sign that paperwork. It's funny to say, is like, they look at each other and it's like, ma'am, your husband has no eyes. Like, there's no such thing as blind people in the military. And it's not that she even had the, I don't know if I can say, but forethought or understanding that I later would still continue another 10 years of active duty service, being the first blind service member. But what she totally understood as a nurse, that to take care of wounded soldiers is that the Army and the occupation in which they're a part of has to be there for them. That, one of the sayings in the Army, and I'm sure the Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard has, is like, leave no soldier behind. Absolutely. It's kind of hard to say that overseas, but then once you get back, boom, 1 month blind, I'm learning how to live as a blind person. Now I'm booted out of the military. I think that was the maturity and the forethought that she had, whether she knew it or not. And that's why I was able to, delay the medical retirement process or the medical evaluation until a year and a half later, in which enabled me to go through blind rehabilitation school, learn how to use my computer, learn to, walk with a blind stick, learn how to cook, clean, and live life. But it's because of the strong decision that she made at that time in that hospital room. But it also was the reliance on the team around her, the Kevin McDonald and many men and women in the hospital that believed in what she believed in, though it was outside of the rules and regulations. It was them that she really depended upon that enabled me to stay on active duty and still serve our country.
Well, you didn't just still serve, Scotty. Let's be real here. You don't do anything just a little bit. Everything you do, you take it to the nth degree. And that's what I love about you. So as you continued to serve, you went back to school, you got your MBA, you became an instructor at West Point, which, I mean, that's a prestigious position to hold, to be teaching our future military leaders. You start jumping out of planes. I mean, with parachutes on your backs. I mean, it's safe. You're doing triathlons. What caused you? I mean, you could have done just one of these and it would have been remarkable. I mean, people going back to school and getting their master's degree is a huge feat. But you just kept on taking on all these life challenges. What was your motivator in continuing to tackle all these life adventures?
Yeah, I've always wanted to, and it's one thing that hasn't changed is living life fully. And I've always thought if I'm not going to live life fully, I'm not saying life isn't worth living, but if you can do more than what you normally do, it's going to be fun, it's going to be exciting, there may be challenges involved, there's no reason you shouldn't do it. And so for me, it's doing a triathlon. Hey, one, you got to get in shape. You got to swim. You got to run. You got to cycle. It's things that keep me active. It's having fun and enjoying life to its fullest that enables me, that gets me outside every day to be active. And not only being an example, kind of a side part is to be an example to others that, hey, I may be blind. I maybe have someone's arm, or on a triathlon, someone's tapping my leg to turn me. I'm on a tandem bicycle. I'm running next to someone. It's motivating others while at the same time living life to its fullest and enjoying and doing what I feel I've been called to do. So whether it's, working hard, I did everything with joy and appreciation. And at the same time, there was kind of, I was at the time the first blind person. And as an infantryman, for some reason, they never gave me a rifle. I'm sure someday I'll find out why. But it was also, I was a black sheep. I'm the only blind person showing up to a duty station. So there's already preconceived notions. As humans, we look at, oh, blind, he may not be able to do this. He can't do this, and that's the unfortunate nature of how we as a society look at disabled people is we say they can't do this, they can't do this. When in fact, I can do pretty much anything and everything I did before. I just do it a little differently. And so for me, I always had to make sure that I met the standard and many times try to over exceed that standard because I knew I was different and how people viewed me differently. And again, being married to an amazing woman, she's the one when my alarm goes off at 4 a.m, 5 a.m, kicking me out of bed. Aren't you supposed to run? Aren't you supposed to, prep for the triathlon? So again, it's just having an amazing relationship, an amazing team that enabled me to continue to serve our nation.
Yeah, wow. That's a really powerful message for people because, someone that I admire is an author, professor at Whitworth University. His name's Jerry Sitzer. Talks about in his book, A Grace Disguised, how a drunk driver hit him and it killed his mother, his wife, and his 4-year-old daughter all at the same time. He lost 3 generations of women. And he really gets into when we experience loss in life. That's one of the universal human experiences. All of us will experience loss of relationship, loss of jobs, loss of, a whole spectrum of loss. Sometimes we classify other people's loss. Like, wow, Jerry's loss was huge. That's 3 women. Well, yeah, but Jerry really points out, no, you don't compare loss to loss. Loss is loss, and everyone's going to experience that, mourn it, and have to work through it in a different way. And so someone could look at you, Scotty, and just say, wow, what a huge loss. And you're just a superhuman. I mean, literally people could, and then they could move right past the fact of whatever they're going through adversity wise and miss some of these points that you're pointing out. The fact of you had these people that were surrounding you, the fact that you had to make a choice. Yeah, your wife says, aren't you supposed to get out of bed? It's time to go run. But you could sit there and say, I ain't doing it today. I don't feel like it. I'm blind and this is frustrating. And there's all kinds of excuses that you can make.
100%.
Someone that's in that mindset, what would you say to them of the fact that, well, Scotty's just this, he was a superhuman and that's why he was able to do all these things. Was it easy? And what would you say to someone who's experiencing adversity now so that they get out of bed?
Yeah, I think it's hard. And I think you hit the nail on the head is everyone looks at the situation and their personal situations in a different fashion, in a different manner. But for me is I haven't been able to do anything in life on my own. I wasn't able to graduate from the military academy on my own, Ranger school on my own. recover through my disabilities on my own, nor live life, finish, an Ironman, do anything on my own. It's always with assistance, always with someone else. But at the same time, and you again, you said it dead on, is I still always have a choice. Do I want to do I want to continue on active duty? Do I want to stay at the military academy? Do I want to go through Ranger school? Trust me, there was 62 days I wanted to quit Ranger school. Maybe not the last day because I was graduating, but every day there's a chance that we have a choice. And for me, it's my strengths and in where I base my gravity and where I base my 2 feet, in which gives me the ability to say, Scotty, you're not a quitter. Scotty, you signed up. This is something you're going to complete. This is something you're going to do. And you're not going to do it on your own, but you're going to trust those around you to help out. And more so, you're going to help them wherever you can and however you can to enable them to reach their goals. And I think that's what really enables me to accomplish the mission and in the end, cross the finish line.
Wow. Yeah, thanks for saying. I think that's powerful for people to hear as they're moving through life. A lot of people have experienced loss in the last year and a half. We have a lot of folks that are still grieving the experience that we've all had collectively, right. and then those individual experiences that have gone on over the last couple of years. Hey, as you talk about in your book, that as you overcame adversity, that you started getting a lot of recognition, and that it was really hard. It was hard to receive this recognition. Why?
Yeah. I've always, at least I've attempted to be a humble person in which I don't want to be recognized for something in which, specifically in the military, that everyone else has done, and the majority are doing better than me and have. And so for me, is I never wanted to be looked at as I'm the poster boy. Oh, look what he's doing. All I wanted to do is some of the core Army values is one is selfless service, do my duty, and do it with integrity. That's all I wanted to do. And if no one knew I was doing it, I was just doing my job. That's all I wanted. But at the same time, I understand when you have a large organization, whether it's the Department of Defense, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, is you do need heroes to look up to. And if I was going to be recognized for something, I'm appreciative of it, but at the same time, I took it in humility. And only thing I really want to do is just to do my job the best manner that I can, and be a great example to my wife, be a great example to our boys. As each one of them were born in different cities across the United States, but just to be that example. So for me, it was just, as I hit on earlier, is do my job, help others, and know that I'm doing my job because others are behind me and right beside me, helping me get the job done.
Well, you bring up family, your wife and your kids. I think you and I agree on this. I think you actually said it before I hit the record button, that most important roles as husband and father, the ones that I'm most proud of. What values do you and Tiffany aim at instilling in your boys? Eventually they're going to leave your house. They're going to hit 18 and they have to launch out into this big world and live life and make decisions. What values do you want them to have before they walk out the door?
I think it's the same values that I have used and Tiffany, my wife, is to love God, to have a value-based, character-based, ethically based decision-making process in which God gives me and God is the lead behind why I do what I do. And then the second is, and I said it earlier, is to love others as you want to be loved. To where if you're treating others as you want to be treated, they're going to be there for you. And I think for me in my life, I wouldn't be able to continue to serve if I wasn't following God, just because I think I would have been a disaster, emotionally, mentally, physically, psychologically. But I think also is I wasn't able to continue to serve if I didn't have the men and women who stood by my side and helped me. And I hope that I am, and continually that example to my boys, to my wife, and to many others is, not only to love God, but to treat others as we want to be treated. And I know anyone and everyone will set themselves up for success. And both my wife and I look forward to seeing what amazing opportunities our boys see in the near future.
I love it. Hey, if people want to learn more about your life and what's going on, the best way to do that is to go to the website, hopeunseen.com. Is that right?
Yeah, hopeunseen.com. They can pick up the book on Amazon. You can order it from hopeunseen.com. They're able to, read about my life, Tiffany's life, and then sometimes they can pick up the documentary Beat Feet about me doing the Ironman a few years ago on Amazon Prime. So again, it's I encourage people just to look to continue to help themselves and do that by helping others.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being willing to join me today, Scotty. I've really enjoyed this. I think we've unpacked some content that others can really benefit from, whether they're military active duty, whether they're veterans, whether they're civilians that have never spent any time in the military. I think a lot of these life lessons and experiences that you've shared are ones that we can all learn from.
No, thanks so much, Chris. It's an honor to be with you today. Again, thank you for your service.
Yep, you're welcome, brother. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks again for joining us today. Hey, if you want to learn more about Scotty Smiley, check out his website, hopeunseen.com. You can check it out down in the comments below. I'll add that website. Also, I'd love to hear from you. If you could go ahead and subscribe, that's probably up there or up there somewhere, to this YouTube channel, and leave us comments. Let us know how we're doing. You can give us a thumbs up if you're liking it. You can give us a thumbs down if you think, not so much. Either way, I'd like your feedback because we want to make this better. We're hoping that it's giving you perspective in life, reminding you of your foundations, and causing you to experience gravity. With that, go and love your loved ones.